Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are doing the next in the Deity Build series, Lathander. And I say it's a Deity Build series, but really we're building the chosen of a deity, if that makes sense. And I think I've got a really cool video here, because Lathander is honestly he's one of my favourite deities. He has quite a strong presence in Baldur's Gate 3 as well, having a large area of the game dedicated to him early on, including his weapon that a chosen of his would wield, basically being available like really early on in the game if you know what you're doing. So I think it's really fun to kind of have a build that comes online quite quickly, but also have a build that has a lot of interesting lore around it. Because for those of you that don't know, Lathander himself as a god is literally just the god of hope, optimism, and moving forward, looking to every new dawn as a new opportunity and a new day. It's just, I don't know, it's rather heartwarming. And the people who follow him, his clerics, are called Dawnbringers, hence the title of this video, because it's a fucking badass name. But also, you have a ton of really cool things, like basically the followers of Lathander are about spreading hope, optimism. They respect like different cultures and art and liberty and nature. He actually has a surprisingly strong tie to nature, and we'll get to that in a minute. But in addition to all of this, basically his most devout followers, his most powerful clerics, are specifically undead hunters, or they hunt not just undead though, shadow beings, and, you know, any sort of thing that is a face of evil. Lathander's clerics will hunt them down. And that got me and chat thinking, because if you don't know, this Deity Build series is actually a collaborative effort between myself and the community in this channel. We do these on live streams, which I announce on the channel, and then we do them usually on the weekends if I have time, and we build these builds together. So if you want to be a part of this series and potentially future videos, please do come and join our live streams, get in chat, hang out. We're a fun time. The past couple of live streams have been really fun as always, and I love seeing people there, so I do hope you join in and, you know, help contribute to these videos in the future. But regardless, let's get into exactly what this character is, because I've got a bit of lore here. I think this character would be, well, a bit of an urchin, like literally a street urchin, because a lot of the time, tieflings they're the subject of prejudice, and I think for perhaps a tiefling who maybe lost their family somehow, perhaps they got separated during some sort of conflict, maybe like something similar to what happened to the tieflings at the Druid Grove in Act 1, perhaps they were attacked by goblins, they lost their parents, something along those lines, and ended up living as a street urchin for a while, subject to the prejudice that tieflings face as a whole. And I feel like this person in particular, this tiefling girl, would have met a Dawnbringer, a cleric of Lathander, or perhaps one of the lesser clergymen who are referred to as awakened, and basically they kind of welcomed them into the church and kind of Lathander's faith, and as such, you know, help spread that optimism and hope, because for someone who was living on the streets, that would be something they'd really need, that optimism and hope, and as such they actually became a Lathandite willingly, grew up kind of the rest of their youthful days in the church, and as an adult are now a fully fledged Dawnbringer. But I don't just think this would be a Dawnbringer cleric that just kind of goes around spreading optimism. I genuinely think that this would be somebody who is one of those undead hunters, or those evil hunters, someone who seeks out the things that go bump in the night, in the dark, shadowy corners of the world, and, you know, hunts them and takes them out. And I actually think their current project would be, well, mild Act 2 spoilers here, but I feel like it's not, well, it's not mild, but I think it's something a lot of people know here. Skip ahead, I'd say maybe 30 seconds. But I think their primary focus at the moment would actually be trying to cure the Shadowlands. So I think between actually exploring the, you know, the crash in Act 1, which was the Rosimon Monastery, which was a Lathander monastery, as well as trying to cure the Shadowlands, I feel like this character's motivation is rooted so hard in Baldur's Gate 3 that it's perfect. And the fact that the build that I have here, its main strategy can come online as early as Act 1 and be pretty much finished as early as, well, probably early to mid-Act 2, like, this is probably one of my most approachable builds in terms of playability and actual level progression. I really hope you guys enjoy this one, because I'm genuinely proud of it. But I've delayed long enough. Let's get into the build. And, I mean, no joke, we're starting as a Cleric. I mean, it makes total sense. It gives us all the weapon proficiencies that we want. It gives us light armor, medium armor, and shields, which we want. And it's going to give us a charisma and wisdom proficiency for our saving throws. And I was going to start with our other main class, just to kind of get some other stuff, but honestly, you kind of get the same things that we need either way. And, well, I think Wisdom and Charisma is a better saving throw than Strength and Dexterity to kind of have, so I decided to go with Cleric for our starting level. And because we are a Cleric right at level 1, that means we can pick Lathander as our deity, and, you know, well, basically gain all those dialogue options right off the bat, which is perfect. So, let's get into the actual build stuff now. As a Cleric, we're going to get a few things, namely cantrips. We can grab Resistance, Guidance, and Thaumaturgy. Now, I'm deliberately ignoring Sacred Flame for now, because we're actually going to get this another way later. And we do technically already have Produce Flame, since we're an Asmodeus Tiefling, but this does use our Charisma rather than our Wisdom, and our Charisma is rather low. So I am probably going to say that we're going to be picking up Produce Flame later anyway, so we have the Wisdom version of it. But for now, we can just pick up our main 3 cantrips here, and I quite like having Guidance and Thaumaturgy. Resistance isn't as useful, but I like to have it around, so I'm going to pick it up now, especially since, like I say, we can get Sacred Flame later. And I mean, I don't think it's any joke to anyone, we're going to be doing the Light Domain. It's literally Lathander's domain, and it makes so much sense for what we're trying to go for here. The Light Domain is honestly one of the better domains in the game, in my opinion. It provides a nice mix between Cleric's overall utility and Blaster-Caster stuff, so I feel like it works out really, really nicely. We get the Light Cantrip, which is actually going to have a unique synergy with this build that wouldn't normally be present, so it's actually quite nice to have here, despite us playing a race that does have Dark Vision inherently. We also gain Burning Hands and Fairy Fire. I think they're both perfectly on theme here, and it's actually kind of interesting that I've chosen a Tiefling here, because I feel like the fire motif that Light Cleric brings actually merges really nicely with the Tiefling race, so you can almost kind of say you're getting this as part of your Tiefling abilities as much as your actual Cleric domain. So overall, I'm actually extremely proud of this whole character theme. I think it just works out so nicely thematically and mechanically. We're also going to get access to Warding Flare, allowing us to shield ourselves with Divine Light using our reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker, possibly causing their attack to miss. Now this is a good ability anyway, it doesn't cost any resources other than a reaction, so you can use it basically as much as you like. However, it has an even greater synergy with this build, and I'll get to why later. As I said, our deity is Lathander, and these are our ability scores. They're a bit stretched thin, unfortunately, just the very nature of clerics, especially ones that use the weapons and such that we want to. Our stats are spread pretty thin. 16 in both Wisdom and Strength. Strength because it's our main attack modifier, and Wisdom because it's our main spellcasting modifier. Dexterity is at 12. I would like this higher, but we are going to be using medium armor and a shield with this build, so by the end of it all, our AC is actually going to be pretty decent, and our AC is not going to matter as much with this build, and I'll explain why later, but like I said, we'll get to that when we get to that. Constitution is at 14. It's an okay amount. As long as we are, you know, not getting hit because, like, of our AC and manipulation and such like that. Again, we'll get to that later. Our HP isn't going to matter as much, but we will have spells like Aid to bump that up as well. The only thing I do worry about a little bit is concentration saving throws, so I actually can see you taking a 1-level dip into Monk for this build to be able to use all of our weapons with Dexterity instead, allowing you to dump Strength and bump up Constitution a bit more if you want, but I kind of have some different stuff I want to get with this build, but again, these builds are always quite, you know, flexible, so take whatever you like. As for our proficiencies, I actually did choose the Urchin background, giving us access to Sleight of Hand and Stealth, at a +1, because again, our Dexterity isn't the best, but you never know when it might come up. And I'm not going to be taking Religion proficiency here, because we are going to get it in a minute as well. In fact, that might give you an idea of what we're going to be multi-classing into. So I feel like History and Insight might be good, but I could also see you going for Insight and Persuasion, so it's entirely up to you, but we will be getting Religion in a minute. Right, at level 2, I'm going to suggest we multi-class into our other main class and come back to Cleric later, which is going to sound weird. Again, we're trying to play a Lathander Cleric, and I mean, you can absolutely just take the levels of Cleric first if you prefer to get the spellcasting stuff, but I do kind of have this build as both a martial fighter and a spellcaster, so I want to kind of get our martial levels first to get extra attack. It's entirely up to you. You could... So it doesn't matter exactly which order you take these levels in. I mean, it's entirely up to you. And you can even change the level ratios around if you want. I mean, all my builds are very flexible. But I kind of want to get these main levels first. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. So let's get our multi-class done and out of the way. We're going Ranger. Now, hear me out. And I'll explain myself immediately. Why are we not going with Paladin? Paladin seems like a no-brainer, right? Divine Smite, Radiance, Light, the theming matches with, you know, Lathander and everything. Why are we not going Paladin? Well, there's a few reasons for this. Number one, and this is a bit of a meta reason, my last deity build was a Paladin Cleric, and really, all my deity builds could be Paladins or Clerics or some mixture of the two, if you really wanted to just stick to that Holy Warrior theme. But, again, you remember earlier that I said that Lathander has deep connection to nature and culture and all that other stuff, specifically that nature part, and then it got me and the other people in the community thinking, he's got this, again, the Dawnbringers, they have this whole thing about hunting the undead and shadowy figures and all this, and trying to, you know, wipe out evil, so why not literally hunt it down as a ranger? And again, I think it brings that added complexity of being this, like, kind of like hunting, you know, wild ranger character, like literally traveling across the land, hunting down evil and, like, killing undead and such, but you almost become a bit shadowy yourself. Whenever there is light, there is shadow, and you can be either. And I actually do think literally being like a hunter ranger, spoilers of the subclass I guess, fits nicely. If you disagree, go with Paladin. Hell, make whatever you want. You might think Monk might even be appropriate, but I really think you should give Ranger a shot, because it brings a lot to this build that you wouldn't otherwise be expecting. Yes, Paladin would technically be the power building option, smites and spell slots and all that, but hear me out. I think Ranger is going to be more surprising than you think. Let's start off with Favoured Enemy. We are going to be picking up Sanctified Stalker, giving us a Sacred Flame cantrip that uses our Wisdom, like I said. It's also going to give us Religion Proficiency, so there you go, all tied up in a nice little bow. We also get to pick a Natural Explorer. Urban Tracker would make sense. I would give you Sleight of Hand Proficiency, except we already got that from our Urchin background, so we don't need it. We already have Fire Resistance because we are a Tiefling. So we could go with cold or poison resistance here, although you can just get protection from poison from either the ranger or the cleric spell list, so I find this isn't as necessary because that's not a concentration spell and it lasts until a long rest. It just costs a level 2 spell slot. So you could go with Wasteland Wanderer Cold for cold resistance, which would be pretty good, but I actually would like Beast Tamer, because Find Familiar in D&D and Baldur's Gate 3, in my opinion, even though it's less useful overall in Baldur's Gate 3, it's still a really fun spell. Familiars can scout ahead for you, they can fit through small gaps, they can do a lot of interesting things. They can give you a little bit of extra utility in combat sometimes if you pick things like the Raven, but overall I just like the idea of this person having an animal companion, and maybe in the form of a crow. Again, it's just a bit of flavour, but I really, really like it. But again, if you wanted the kind of power building option, go with Wasteland Wanderer Cold. As for our abilities, we are already getting Religion, like I said, from our Sanctified Stalker, but we can also pick up an extra proficiency for 3 out of the Ranger proficiencies. And you can go with Perception, Survival, Animal Handling, Nature, Investigation, or Athletics. I'll go with Perception for now, because again, I feel like that just kind of makes sense for this character. Next up at Ranger level 2, we get to pick a fighting style. Now, as I said, we are going to be going kind of for a shield playstyle here, which means we are going to be using a one-handed weapon, so dueling makes sense. This is going to allow you to, as long as you're using a weapon that is not two-handed or versatile in one hand and no weapon in the other, you deal an additional 2 damage. You can carry a shield in your free hand and still gain this bonus. So with our weapon in one hand and a shield in the other, although this weapon is a one-handed weapon anyway, so you don't need the shield to get this buff, but you might as well use the shield. we're just going to be getting an extra additional 2 damage with all of our weapon attacks, which is nice. As for our spells, we get to pick a couple here, and I'm absolutely going to go for Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark basically allows us to inflict a condition on our opponents that deals an extra 1d6 slashing damage whenever we attack. So yeah, overall it's a pretty nice spell. It will last as long as we like, and we can recast it without expending a spell slot once our target dies. It's just more damage for the build. But remember that I said it inflicts a condition. We'll come back to that later. As for your other spell, it doesn't really matter, take whatever you like. I feel like someone who traverses the wilds quite a lot would probably have snacks on hand, so Goodberry would make sense. But also Enhanced Sleep or Longstrider would, but I'm going to be taking Speak with Animals because it is one of the most fun spells in the game. It opens up so much dialogue overall, and I feel like it would just make a ton of sense to pick up if you just want to be able to converse with as many things as possible. And absolutely worth it in my opinion. Next up, at level 3, we get to pick our subclass. And, I mean, I've already said what we're picking. We're going with Hunter. Hunter is going to give us a unique Hunter's Prey feature, in which you can choose one of the following. Colossus Slayer, that allows you to, once per turn, your weapon attacks deal an extra 1d8 damage if the target is below its hit point maximum. So once per turn, you just get an extra 1d8 of damage, for free, which is amazing. There's Giant Killer, in which if you attack a large or, bigger creature, you can use your reaction to make a melee attack. Sorry, if it attacks you, you can use your reaction to attack back. You must be able to see the creature, and you must be within 1.5 meters of you. It's bad. I wouldn't use this. It's not going to come up enough to be relevant. And then finally, Horde Breaker. Target 2 creatures standing close to each other, attacking them in quick succession. This one's actually really underrated in my opinion. I think it can be pretty good. And I would actually say if this is a character that goes after kind of undead hordes and such like that, like zombie groups or something, kind of like Walking Dead style, or just kind of goes after a lot of lower level mobs in the face of maybe the shadow creatures from Act 2 or something like that, then I actually think Horde Breaker would make a ton of sense. And you can do it with both a melee attack and a ranged attack. So basically you just target 2 creatures standing close to each other. The fact is they have to be standing close, which can be a bit annoying. It's a little bit less versatile than maybe things like the Bard or Fighter features, but I do think it works out quite nicely overall and would actually be a really decent option. I'm going with Colossus Slayer because I do think it is the power pick overall, as it is going to be better if you're in more one-on-one fights, which this game kind of does with its very many boss fights, but Horde Breaker would absolutely make sense for this build. Basically anything but Giant Killer. We also do get another spell at this level, and I'll go with Longstrider because I like that extra bit of movement speed, but I do think Enhanced Sleep would also work. You could also go for Ensnaring Strike and Hail of Thorns. This build does use a bow, but it's not integral to the build. It's entirely up to you if you want to go for one of those. At Ranger level 4, we are going to be getting our first feat, and we kind of need to take an ability score improvement here because our stats are spread pretty thin. And since we're focusing more on the martial side of things at the moment, let's bump up our strength to 18. Now, yes, you could get this to 20 with the Potion of Everlasting Vigor, but I don't feel like a character like this would do that, especially considering how you get the potion in the first place. I mean, yes, you can kind of hand-wave it as a game mechanic as it is one minor scene, but I'm not going to be recommending it for this build. This build would be slightly stronger with it, but it's not necessary. 18 is still a perfectly good number, especially when we've got equipment and class features bumping up our chances to hit anyway. So, we can go with strength for now. And then next up, at Ranger, level 5, we're going to be finally getting extra attack, meaning now we can make 2 attacks with a weapon as an action, which is perfect. It's what every martial wants. And we also do get access to another spell. You can take a level 1 or 2 option here, because we now are up to level 2 spell slots. As I said before, you could take the Protection from Poison spell, which is probably what I'm going to do, but things like Enhanced Sleep, Spike Growth, Silence, Hail of Thorns, Goodberry, all of these would work. Lesser Restoration would actually probably make perfect sense for this build, as it's, curing a creature from disease, poison, paralysis, or blindness, which I feel like Clerics of Lathander would probably do for people. It's entirely up to you, though. This is kind of just like the give us an extra resistance option, so why not? Yeah, you do get it. And you also get an advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. Nice. Now, you can go to Ranger level 6 of this build if you want an extra favoured enemy or Natural Explorer, but I feel like we've got everything that we want from these covered anyway, so I don't think it's necessarily worth it. Like I said, if you wanted to make a Dexterity version of this build, take a level of Monk between the start of the build and now, and get that sorted, but I think we're going to go back to Cleric for the rest of our levels, at least for this build, because I want to get all of our Cleric stuff, and going to level 7 of Cleric overall will actually give us some neat stuff, and we'll get to that when we get to that. At level 2 of Light Cleric, we're going to get our Channel Divinity charges, and we're also going to get our Turn Undead, which again, perfect for this build. It's basically one of Lathander's abilities, because they hunt undead. Makes perfect sense. We're also going to be getting Radiance of the Dawn. I mean, literally, the Dawnbringer, the God of the Dawn. Radiance of the Dawn. It makes perfect sense. This is going to allow us to harness the sun's divine power to dispel magical darkness, and in a radius around us, deal a bunch of radiant damage, 2d10 plus 5 to be exact. This will be higher as we level up our wisdom as well, because I believe it uses our wisdom modifier. And it's a saving throw, so you're always going to be dealing at least half damage, which is awesome. A great use of Channel Divinity. Also, we do get to prepare spells as well, which I forgot to do at level 1, but hey ho, here we are. Sanctuary is going to be a really awesome spell just to kind of allow you to basically stop yourself from taking damage for a short break if you need to kind of, you know, strategize, maybe do some healing, whatever you need to do. You're not going to need this as much. Again, this build's playstyle is going to be very much based around not getting hit, but Sanctuary is a great contingency plan. We also gain Guiding Bolt, basically our big ranged damage spell with radiant damage. Makes perfect sense here. I would say Bless also makes sense for this build, basically allowing you to give a plus 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws for up to 3 creatures, which can be even more people if you upcast the spell. And then finally, I think a Cleric of Lathander would absolutely have Cure Wounds and Healing Word. I know they're not necessarily all about healing and the life domain and all that, but come on, if you're spreading hope and optimism, you're probably patching up a boo-boo or two. Next up at Cleric level 3, we're going to get access to level 2 spells, and because we are a Light Domain Cleric, we get access to Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray. Again, a bit more on the Tiefling side of things, if, you know, we're going off of that justification. But we also do get to prepare some extra spells here, and I think there's a couple that I definitely want to grab. I'll remove Bless for now just to kind of show it. Aid, like I said, is going to be a really, really powerful spell for us. In my opinion, it's one of the best kind of buff spells in the game, just beefing up your maximum HP, not temporary HP. There's a difference. And as well, I think, again, as someone who's going to be a hunter of undead, we absolutely want Hold Person, which holds a humanoid creature still, which actually I don't think undead counts as. So, but, I mean, again, it can be used to hunt down evildoers and such like that. Okay, maybe I didn't think that one through 100% until just now, but I still think Hold Person is thematically appropriate for the build, and I would absolutely bring it. Again, you're not just hunting undead, you're hunting all things evil, which, you know, there might be Eye of the Beholder type deal. I mean, Spiritual Weapon is also going to be a good spell, but hell, we can get that next level. Let's go there now. Don't you just love it when I realise mistakes on the fly? Anyways, as for our cantrip, we do get an extra one here, so let's pick up Produce Flame to get the Wisdom variant, because again, our Charisma isn't great. As for our prepared spells, let's pick up Spiritual Weapon, like I said. I feel like a Cleric of Lathander who is based on kind of like being a Gish with weapon attacks and spellcasting, having a literal weapon spell, or a spell weapon, it makes a ton of sense, so let's grab it. As for our feat, we do get to choose another one, and I'm absolutely going to go for an ability score improvement to bump up our wisdom. Now that we're getting more into the spellcasting side of things, we absolutely want to bump this up. Unfortunately, neither our strength or our wisdom is going to be hitting 20 with this build, unless you use a certain object in Act 3, which I won't spoil, but if you know, you know, to get one of these stats up at +2. So you could technically do that if you're into that, but I personally don't include that in my builds, so we're just going to say we have an 18 and an 18 for now, but there is potential to go for 20/20 if you know everything, and you don't care, you just want the stats. At Cleric level 5, we're going to be getting a couple of awesome features, namely our main Cleric feature, Destroy Undead. Now, our Turn Undead ability deals radiant damage, so it's a nice buff, although I would probably be using Radiance of the Dawn more often than not, since Turn Undead only works on, well, undead, whereas Dawn of the Radiance of the Dawn works on everything. We also get access to level 3 spells at this point, as well as spells from our light domain. Daylight, allowing us to basically create a sphere or enchant an item with a wide array of daylight, illuminating it, and if the creatures have sunlight sensitivity, can do damage or apply debuffs. Pretty good for vampires. And I think it fits perfectly with this build. Also, Fireball. Kaboom. Anyways, as for our other spells, we can pick up a couple of level 3 options, and yes, we're taking Spirit Guardians because it is just that good. It makes perfect sense for this. It's radiant damage, it's good. We're not concentrating on many other spells here, so yeah, I think Spirit Guardians is definitely the way to go, as pretty much always. I could also see Beacon of Hope being a nice option, though. Your allies will always regain the maximum amount of hit points possible when healed. They also gain advantage on Wisdom saving throws and Death saving throws. That could be a nice one, but it's a bit more situational than Spirit Guardians. So I'm going to pick up Mass Healing Word for now, just so we have that big group heal. But you can pick up whatever you like. Next up at Cleric level 6, we are going to get an improvement to our subclass feature, Improved Warding Flare. Now we can apply that same disadvantage on the attack rolls to our enemies to attacks attacking our allies. That was the worst possible way I could have worded that. Basically, we can also now help allies avoid attacks as well as ourselves. So, you know, that's a better way of putting it. And we also do get an extra usage of our Channel Divinity at this level, which is nice. We also do get an extra spell as well. Let's pick up Beacon of Hope just because I was talking about it. And finally, at Cleric level 7, we get access to level 4 spells, including 2 from our light domain. Number 1 being Guardian of Faith, allowing us to call forth a Divine Guardian that attacks nearby enemies, and every time it deals damage, the Guardian loses an equal amount of hit points. So basically it has a pool of hit points that it draws from to do attacks, and it's kind of like automated. Once you cast it, it doesn't move, but basically it kind of just attacks automatically anything that comes near it. So it can be quite useful kind of setting up arena traps, I guess. I feel like it makes a lot of sense for this spell to kind of have this build to kind of have this, so I wanted to pick it up. We also get Wall of Fire, which is just a nice extra fire spell, which again can be used for kind of defense, being able to set up kind of a wall in front of you that enemies will either have to go around or through, taking damage or wasting their movement. So I kind of like having both of these on this build. We also do get access to other level 4 spells, and I really do want Death Ward and Banishment. Death Ward allows us to protect a creature from death. The next time the next time damage would reduce it to 0 hit points, it remains conscious with 1 hit point left. Basically, allowing you to protect the innocent, your teammates, or even yourself from death, giving you a chance to heal and keep the fight going, or escape and live to fight another day. But also Banishment. Again, if we're this type of undead hunter, or, you know, Shadow Destroyer or something, Bringer of Light, then being able to banish evil makes sense. Again, this is only temporary, but hey, it could give you enough time to do something. It's just nice for this build thematically. Again, you don't have to go to level 7 in Cleric if you feel like a 1 level dip into something else would be nice. So play around with this as much as you like. Let me know what you would do in the comments below. And that is the build. Overall, you're going to get a lot out of this build. You're going to get a ton of melee power as well as a ton of spellcasting power. That noise in the background is really, really loud. I did not realise that until I started recording. Holy balls, I hope you guys can still hear me okay. I'm pretty sure my recording settings will make it so this shouldn't be too much of a problem, but hey ho, you never know. Yeah, but again, you're getting all your blaster caster options like Fireball, you're going to get your really powerful concentration spells like Spirit Guardians, you're getting a ton of utility, Radiance of the Dawn is a really powerful feature, you're going to get a ton of stuff out of this. But let's now get into the equipment, which is the main thing that makes this build tick. And of course, we have our main weapon of choice, the Blood of Lathander. The Blood of Lathander is a legendary mace, which to this day is still the stupidest thing ever. This is a Morning Star. Come on, guys. Basically, the Blood of Lathander deals 1d6 plus 7 bludgeoning damage. It is a legendary plus 3 weapon, and once per long rest, when your hit points are reduced to 0, you regain 2 to 12 hit points. Allies within 9 meters also regain 1d6 hit points. Basically, it is I didn't hear no bell ability. You get back up with a bit of HP and can continue going. Combine this with Death Ward, and you essentially get 2 revives, which is pretty nice. This weapon also sheds light in a 6-meter radius. In combat, fiends and undead standing in the light are blinded unless they succeed a con save. Now, that is a nice ability on its own. Again, if we're fighting undead or fiends, it makes sense. But the fact that it just sheds a light which illuminates enemies is going to have some important synergy later. And of course, the other really awesome thing we get with this is a once per long rest use of Sunbeam, which is basically just firing a Kamehameha of pure radiant energy right in a line in front of you and blinding all creatures in its path. I love this spell. I wish there was more ways to get it, other than going to level 6 in caster or getting this. But hey ho, I think this is going to work out pretty nicely for the build overall. It's a great spell, it's a great weapon, absolutely love it, perfectly on theme for the build, and obtained in Act 1 as well, which is awesome. I love how early this build comes online. Let's get into the equipment. The rest of it, I mean. As I said, we have the Blood of Lathander as our weapon. I have it in my inventory anyway, so there's only one. You're not seeing double here. I got this with mods, as I do with everything. If you want to use the same mods I use to make these builds, links are in the description below. Anyways, but like I said, we have the Blood of Lathander, as already stated. But as another weapon, this is an Act 3 weapon. You're going to get this very, very late into the game. You can use any bow on this build earlier on, like the Titan String Bow, the what do you call it, the Darkfire short bow. All of those would be useful. This is just here to give us a little bit of extra utility at range, but it's mainly here because it is a big light bow. It's a legendary bow. I've closed my inventory for some reason. It's going to allow you to inflict Guiding Bolt on hit. It also glows with light as well, which again synergizes with the build, so even if you pull out the bow, you're not going to lose your your illumination. And you also gain access to Celestial Haste, which allows you to cast haste on yourself. It only lasts 5 turns, but you don't become lethargic when it's over, which is really, really nice. So it's basically 5 turns of no restriction haste, which is great. It's just a little buff you can pick up in Act 3, but any bow you pick up will work for this build. As for the rest of the equipment, let's get into the main stuff. Namely, let me just re-equip some stuff here, because I kind of moved stuff off the build for the sake of, like, the thumbnail shot. Because I took the thumbnail shot right before recording. Anyways, let's get into the actual equipment. Sorry, I'm all over the place. First up, we have the Holy Lance Helm. Creatures who miss their attack rolls against the wearer must succeed a Dex save or take 1d4 radiant damage. It also gives you a +1 to Constitution saving throws, which is nice. Basically, what this is going to allow us to do is, if this build works as planned, which it does from my testing, you're basically going to be able to constantly do a little bit of extra radiant damage whenever someone attacks you, which is great. This is obtained in Act 1 in the very location where you get a lot of this other stuff, including the Blood of Lathander, so again, an important part of the build picked up really early. Next up is the Mantle of the Holy Warrior. This is a totally optional thing, you don't need to get it, but I quite liked it for the theming. It adds a little bit to the fashion, giving us a little bit of a cape. And also we have a unique ability brought about, the Crusader's Mantle. Basically, at the cost of our concentration, once per short rest, we can radiate a holy power that emboldens nearby allies, causing their weapon attacks to deal an additional radiant damage, literally bringing about the light of Lathander and buffing everyone with radiance. Makes perfect sense, but is totally optional, put whatever you like in this slot. We also have the Luminous Armour, one of the key cornerstones of this build, obtained in Act 1. When the wearer deals radiant damage, they cause a radiant shockwave. Now, we're pretty much always going to be doing radiant damage in some way or another, as we'll get to in a minute, but let's get into Radiant Shockwave. It inflicts Radiating Orb on everyone in a 3-meter radius. But what is Radiating Orb? Radiating Orb basically causes an orb of light to appear above an enemy's head while they're inflicted with it. The affected entity has a -1 to attack rolls for each remaining turn. It also sheds a bright light in an area surrounding it. You reduce the duration of Radiating Orb by 2 each time the entity attacks. Here's the thing. This seems like a decent condition overall. I mean, making it so you're harder to hit is always nice. But here's the kicker. This can stack up to 10 turns. At maximum, that is a -10 to attack rolls. Combined with our overall 18 AC, that's going to make us very hard to hit overall. My voice cracked then, that was weird. Anyways, so this whole build's idea is to inflict Radiating Orb on as many enemies as possible, giving them a really hard time to hit us and our allies, and then using things like the Holy Lance Helm and other abilities to retaliate once they miss. Overall, I think it's a really, really awesome strategy, and I think it has a lot of powerful of power and potential. So I think it works out really, really nicely, and I think it's a very fun playstyle. You'll see in the combat footage that it does work out quite nicely. But yeah, basically that's the main way of inflicting Radiating Orb, but it's only one... I believe it, yeah, it's only one turn of it, and it only takes one attack to basically get rid of it, so we need to stack other ways of getting Radiating Orb. So here we have the Luminous Gloves. These are obtained in early Act 2. When the wearer deals radiant damage, the target receives 2 turns of Radiant Orb. So between the armor and the gloves, we're inflicting 3 turns of Radiating Orb right off the bat. That's great. And it also gives us a buff to strength saving throws, which is nice. We're combining this with the Boots of Stormy Clamour. When the wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, Irradiating Orb is our condition of choice, they also inflict 2 turns of Reverberation, which basically means the affected entity has a -1 penalty to strength, dex, and con saves per remaining turn. When the entity has 5 or more turns of Reverberation, it takes 1 to 4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. The condition is removed afterwards. So basically it is just an extra condition that's going to give us a bit more damage and a bit more utility just for inflicting Radiating Orb, which we're already doing. So it just made sense to put these on. As for our accessories, we have the Amulet of the Devout. You gain a +2 to your spell save DC. This is basically going to make up for the fact that we don't hit 20 in Wisdom. It's just a better chance for all of our spells to hit, which is great. You also gain an additional use of your Channel Divinity, giving us overall 3 charges instead of just 2, which is awesome. It's the perfect amulet for this build. It is only obtained in Act 3 though, so there are some earlier game options. Namely, the Spine Shudder Amulet, allowing you to, whenever you deal damage with a ranged spell attack, you inflict 2 turns of Reverberation. Guiding Bolt, Scorching Ray, Fireball, all this sort of thing should do the trick, so it's just more stacks of Reverberation. However, I will point out another amulet, which, while not really providing much to the build itself, would definitely be something you want to pick up in your playthrough. This is the Sentient Amulet. Now, normally this is only useful for monks, but for our build... it's interesting, since we're playing as a Lathandite, is what I'm calling them, that might not be what they're called, or a Dawnbringer, the Cleric of Lathander, this amulet actually has a questline that's tied into Lathander's faith. I won't spoil exactly what that quest is, or how you complete it, or whatever, just seek out the Sentient Amulet in Grimforge in Act 1, and start the quest from there. Trust me, it's something this character would want to do. Next up, we have the Coruscation. I don't want to say scat. No, Coruscation. Coruscation. We'll go with that. Coruscation Ring. When the wearer deals spell damage while illuminated by a light source, remember, Lathander's blood of Lathander is constantly radiating light. They also inflict Radiating Orb upon the target for 2 turns. So just by walking near creatures, you've inflicted Radiating Orb on them, which means you've also inflicted Reverberation on them, and then you can inflict even more Reverberation by attacking them. So basically in 1 turn you can inflict 2, 4, 5 turns of Radiating Orb, which is awesome. We also have the Callous Glow Ring, allowing the wearer to deal an additional 2 points of damage against creatures that are illuminated. Well, again, anything that becomes within melee range of us is going to be illuminated, so that's just 3 extra damage. Let's get into the shield as well. I've chosen the Shield of Scorching Reprisal for this build. When a foe hits you with a melee attack, you can shield bash it and knock it prone, and yes, this is finally fixed as of patch 6, so all shield bashes finally work. But this comes with a unique thing that gives us resistance to fire damage, which again is a tiefling we already have, so whatever, but we do also get the unique ability Blazing Retaliation once per short rest as a bonus action. You can huddle behind your shield, increasing your armor class by 1 and allowing you to deal 1 to 6 fire damage to anyone who attacks you and misses during that turn. Basically, it just fits in nicely with the build. It's like an extra bit of AC, so again, you're harder to hit, and then when the enemy misses, they trigger the fire attack, as well as all our radiant damage stuff and all that, and with Radiating Orb, they have a very, very high chance to miss. And again, we can also stack that Radiating Orb with improved Warding Flare to impose disadvantage as well. This build is not going to get hit that much, at least for the most part. You do still kind of have to play your cards right to make that so, and again, you could improve this build in little ways, like I said, but overall I feel like the overall theme and strategy is going to be pretty solid if you choose to play this. But I will say that you can get an upgrade to your shield once you reach Act 3, that being Viconia's Walking Fortress, giving you a stronger version of Shield Bash with Rebuke of the Mighty, allowing it to also deal force damage. You gain a +3 to your armor class instead of a +2, and you get 2 unique abilities, well I say unique. You gain advantage on saving throws against spells, which is great, and spell attack rolls against you have disadvantage, meaning again, now spells have an even higher chance to miss, which is awesome. You gain Reflective Shell that allows you to reflect spells back at their point of origin, and Warding Bond allowing you to ward an ally, giving them resistance to all damage and a +1 bonus to their armor class in saving throws, but you also take any damage that they take. But again, I feel like as a kind of protector hunter person this would make sense, and also I think fashion-wise it looks brilliant with this build. So yeah, overall I quite like it. So yeah, that is the build. I'm going to see if I can move away a little bit so the noise isn't so bad, because that was getting slightly annoying. That's better. Okay, so now you'll see the combat footage playing, and overall, as you can kind of see, like I said, we're dealing tons of damage. We're spreading, you know, radiant damage as we go. We literally walk up to enemies and they get a case of radiating orb. I will say that all the enemies we are up against here are fiends, so they are subject to the blindness status condition that Lathander's weapon brings, the Blood of Lathander. So we do have an advantage in this combat footage that you might not normally have. And there's been a debate between myself and members of the community here and people who see my videos about is testing builds on this boss actually worth it, and the general consensus seems to be mixed. Most people don't care, but the people who do cite the fact that it doesn't really seem to accurately represent the build, because at the end of the game, towards the end of the game, bosses have much better stats, different resistances and other things, and I totally understand that. I think when I have a bit more time, I'm going to make a character that's kind of like a blank slate, quickly play through the game with them, and just have them in Act 3 so I can test other encounters with them. But at the moment I still kind of have to do this as a combat showcase, because again, I have to make these videos in a bit of a short time frame, and it is just easier for me at the moment. But as far as like this boss goes, as far as like testing single builds, it does still kind of work. For those of you who don't know, I do think I show it briefly in the combat footage. This guy's stats are pretty decent. He's resistant to a lot of damage, he has a high AC, and his overall stat spread is quite good on Tactician. The only issue is the fact that the Mind Flayer is there helping you out. So I can see why the data may be skewed, but there is also the 2 cambions that follow as well and stuff like that. I mean, I personally think it's okay, but I can definitely see why other people don't, and I think I am going to try and remedy this for the future. Some people suggested doing what Colby from D4 did, which was use Steel Watchers in Act 3, which could work, but I don't know, I'll see. I definitely want to kind of do different things as far as that's concerned, so I'm just letting you know that your criticisms have been heard, and I am going to work to change that when I have the time. I just don't at the moment to like just play through the game, so you're going to see this guy for a little bit longer still, but until I can get a proper save file set up where I know I'm not going to be too worried about glitching things out and such, because I have some complete save files, but they're like my actual personal save files. I don't really want to mess about, so you know. Anyways, yeah, as you can see in the combat footage, the strategy does mostly work. We do still take a few hits here and there, but that is just the luck of the dice roll. I mean, that is just going to happen. But, you know, we inflict radiating orb all over the place. We're dodging attacks left, right, and center, dealing heavy retaliation damage, all this other stuff, dealing big damage with our weapon attacks and our spells. It's a ton of fun overall. I feel like the mechanics, the theme, the power, all of this comes together really, really nicely in this build. You have so many little ways to augment yourself and your abilities, and it's just fun. I do think this is probably one of my favourite build concepts that I've done, easily, I think. And I really do appreciate chat working with me to build this one, because I think it just works great. Again, yes, I think if you wanted to go for the pure power building route, Paladin would probably be better. But I just liked the theming of the Hunter Ranger so much, and the little stuff that it gives us that Paladin doesn't, but I just like. And again, I don't just want to build Paladin Rangers all the time. It's not always about a Paladin Clerics or Paladin Sorcerers or anything like that. This channel isn't about optimization or always making the most powerful build. It's just making what seems fun and thematic to me, and that's what this build is. and it's one of my favorites to date, and I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did. I even went hard on the thumbnail. Like, that thumbnail shot that I got, oh man, I was so proud of that. I'll probably show that off before the video even goes live, which will be tomorrow as of this recording. So I'm recording, editing, and uploading this the day before. Yay! But yeah. As for end of video stuff, I will quickly touch on something about a post I made yesterday about my kind of, I guess I'm getting slightly burnt out with making Baldur's Gate 3 videos, and I am going to start D&D content soon. I think I'm going to try and see if I can spend a bit of time this weekend to kind of get that figured out and have a a D&D build for 5th edition up on Monday, so look forward to that. I'm kind of interested in seeing where that kind of new level of creativity takes me. However, for the first lot of these D&D builds, I'm kind of doing like 2 requests at once here. I'm going to be trying to make D&D builds that can be recreated in Baldur's Gate 3 using mods or without mods at all. So using like classes and subclasses that have modded variants already existing in the Nexus. So if you wanted to actually make these builds in Baldur's Gate 3, you could, because there's a level 20 mod and the subclass mods, so you absolutely could. So it's still technically going to be BG3 content, just not in the same way as before. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. The rest of that post went on a bit of a rant about kind of like this, like how YouTube basically treats people who make content on its platform, about how it constantly moves the goalpost on how your videos should be performing, because even though my videos are still performing like well, considering, like, again, what the channel was a few months ago, like, seeing how the videos perform now would make me from a few months ago be like, wow, this channel's doing so well. But YouTube is constantly telling me, because I had January and December where I uploaded the Origin builds, and I've had builds that reach, like, really high numbers now, like, pretty much most of my builds getting over 10k views at some point in their life cycle. When I have a build that does, you know, okay for what would have been, or a video that does okay for what would have been, you know, a few months ago, YouTube is now saying that those videos are performing poorly. And as much as I said I don't care in the past about the YouTube stuff, as this channel has started to grow, it invades your mind. When you have the platform that you're constantly uploading content to tell you that your content isn't good, it hurts. Especially when, as I said in the post, that YouTube recommends videos for you to look at and like say, here, this is what people are watching and this is what you should, you know, try and emulate with your own content. And it's just those all caps like how to build super OP broken build, or the best of this and the best of that and infinite damage. And it's just like, no, that's not what I want to make. And maybe if I did bend to the whim of, you know, the YouTube algorithm and, you know, what's popular, my channel would do better. But again, that's not what this channel is about. I'm not about being a YouTuber. I'm about making things that I'm happy with and, you know, engaging and interacting with the community that we have. But even despite that, when, again, you know, you kind of get, you know, the comments saying, oh, you know, you should do this, this, and this, or the YouTube itself telling me that I should do this, this, and this, like, and again, it's not criticism, it's just like, you know, I can't explain it. Like, I don't have a problem with people, like, criticizing what I do or whatever, but it's just, it is getting a bit tricky to, when I feel like I'm bored making these videos, it feels like that comes across in the content, and it feels like my videos don't perform as well because other people are bored. So, I mean, we're coming up on 100 builds, 100 Baldur's Gate 3 videos now. It might not be 100 builds, there may be a couple of Baldur's Gate 3 videos that are in the build playlist that aren't technically build videos, like the patch update videos, or like my separate combat showcases, or something like that. But we are getting close to 100 D&D videos. Not D&D videos, Baldur's Gate 3 videos, with my next video being basically my 100th, which is insane. But it is getting to the point where I'm not finding it as creatively fulfilling, which is why I'm branching out into D&D content while also doing the Deity Build series as well. And I'm also going to be hosting a live stream fairly soon. It might be this weekend, it might be next, where I will be building the rest of the companions, that being Halcyon, Minthara, Jaheira, and Minsk, with the community as well, and have that be an ongoing series. So basically that and the Deity Build series going on parallel to the new D&D content, and seeing where that goes. That's kind of where my head is at the moment. If you read the post, you kind of already know this, but not everyone sees those, so I figured I'd say it in a video anyway. For those of you that stick around like this long and hear all my random ramblings, thank you so much. And again, I'm going to continue. I'm going to keep this channel going. I think I'm in far enough now that even though like I'm going to have ups and downs and such like that, I want to keep this channel going, no matter what. And even if I'm uploading videos like years from now that are getting like barely even getting 100 views, if we still have the community that we have and we're still being cool and vibing and, you know, just doing whatever makes us happy, then I'll be alright. It's just sometimes when I'm making the same videos pretty much every other day and, you know, YouTube's like, fuck you, it does weigh down on my conscience a little bit, but I'm not going anywhere. Not now, not ever. Sorry that got really sad, not sad, but kind of like depressing, a little bit of bitching and moaning towards the end there, but I like to be honest with you guys. And, you know, just say where my head's at sometimes. So, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time before I just continue rambling. See you all later.